Greetings fellow members of the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Well, if you've been following the channel for the last few months, you'll know that I've been getting a lot of great stuff for Dystopian Wars by Warcradle Studios. Now, Dystopian Wars is a game of steampunk naval battles set in an alternate history, late 19th century. There's a whole lot of factions. In fact, there's 8 factions in the game. And Warcradle have relaunched the game, as you know, with the starter set, which I showed you how to build and paint, which is called Hunt for the Prometheus. And since then, they've been sending me more of these Battlefleet sets to increase your forces. And wow, they're really churning them out because, as I said, there are 8 factions and there's lots of new stuff coming all the time. Now, these are 2 brand new factions. We've got the Union here, and this is the Constitution Battlefleet set. So the Union is basically America. And in this one, again, as always, you get a beautiful big resin ship and then a few plastic sprues, which you can build in various configurations depending on how you want to set up your fleets. And the other one is the Tempelhof Battlefleet set. And these are the Germans. This is the Imperium, basically the Germans. And they're a different style again. And all of these are quite distinctive, beautiful designs. I don't know how they do it. They're really churning out new stuff all the time. And they're all beautiful looking ships. And really, it's just a matter of finding the time to build them all and play the game more. I know I haven't done a battle report yet. I have played a couple of times and really enjoyed the game. And I'm trying to organise a battle report for you to show you how it plays. So look forward to that. In the meantime, let's have a look at these 2 sets, open them up, and show you how they go together and what the final ships look like when they're built. So let's kick things off with the Constitution Battlefleet set. Now, what do we have here? Oh, look, this is something new, a flying stand, because we've got some flying units. And if you look at the back here, we've got these, which are the Akron observation rotors, which look great, don't they? Really, really nice. We've got a Constitution class battleship, which is our resin ship. And as usual, a lovely big piece of resin with lots of detail. In keeping with the American 19th century theme, we've got big paddle wheels on the side. It looks great, lots of detail. That's a beautiful looking ship. They're all impressive. I've got to say, these Dystopian Wars models are so impressive, especially these large resin ones. They're just gorgeous and look fantastic on the tabletop. The other thing that's very exciting is that they're bringing out soon a terrain set. So I'll be showing you this on the channel when it comes out. So some extra islands and things which you can add to your seascapes. Really looking forward to that. So there's our large ship, which is the Constitution class battleship. Then we've got the flying stands, little stands for that. And then 3 sprues. Those 2 sprues match up. Those 2 sprues. So we've got 2 times 2 types of sprues. And this is to put together our cruisers and frigates and, of course, those observation rotors. So let's see how these get put together and what they look like. First off, I'm putting together the battleship. And with this one, when you're taking off this big hunk of resin, of course, don't forget to shave these bits off as well. You can use a set of clippers to get most of that off. And then just shave it down with a scalpel. Just, of course, being very careful about your fingers and make sure you don't cut yourself. You can also use a file to file that down nice and smooth. And then it's just a very simple matter of using a bit of super glue and attaching that top piece. And there it is, a lovely big impressive ship, and it's got these huge heavy gun batteries on it. Of course, I'll be magnetising these as I always do. You can instead have rocket batteries if you want to, but if you're going with the unit card for the Constitution, it's got these heavy gun batteries. So beautiful big ship, great stuff. So the next thing to do are the cruisers, and these come in sort of cruiser and heavy cruiser options. There's 4 different ones: Yorktown, Lexington, Intrepid or Reliant class ships. And of course, as usual, I'm building these from the PDFs that you can download from the website. Now, this is where I will have one criticism with the way that they're setting this up, is that they give you these different options for building the ships, but they don't show the finished ship, which I always find a bit frustrating because you've got to match the type of ship to the picture on the back, and the picture on the back isn't very clear because some of these have truncated backs and some of them have extended backs, and some of them have 2 weapons and some of them have 1 weapon, and it doesn't identify which is which, so you have to sort of interpret that from the instructions. So if you're listening War Cradle, that's just one thing I'd say to do to just improve these build instructions. Have a picture, probably a side-on picture, which shows clearly what the ship looks like on each one of these build configurations, so I can easily identify it without having to sort of check the unit cards and the building and the whole bit. So anyway, with this one, of course, you've got all this choice, and it's always difficult when you get these sets to choose which one. So I use a very simple rule called the rule of cool, and I pick the one that I think looks the best. So of course I'm going to pick the one that's got the double weapons and the extended stern because it's the largest ship and most impressive. Now, for some reason I want to field it as one of the other ships. I don't care, I just call it that, and as long as my opponent agrees with that and we both know what it is, I don't have a problem with that. So I just build the one I like the best. So in this case, I'm going to build the Lexington class heavy cruiser, which is the one with the extended stern and 2 weapons. And for that one, I just have to build the bow first. So I'm using my lovely nippers from Redgrass Games. These are fantastic. Unfortunately, I chopped a bit off there, and that was completely my fault because I was trying to dig out a superglued magnet. So in other words, I was using the tool for something that it was not designed to do, and it broke. So I'm hoping to get a new set of these soon because they are the best. They're precision nippers, they're very sharp, and they're really good for cutting out your pieces out of sprues. I highly recommend them. Redgrass Games. Now, of course, as I'm building these, I chop them out, and then with all my pieces, I would clean them up with a scalpel, get rid of all those little knobs and everything. I may skip some of those steps as I'm showing you this quickly, but I always do that with every piece, so it's all nice and neat and there's no ugly knobs sticking out or anything like that. You clean up every piece of plastic as you go. Silly me, I had the wrong front piece before. This is the front piece because it's got a weapon mount there. So you take these 2 side pieces, making sure that little nub is at the top. Add a bit of glue. I recommend this glue, Revell Contactor Professional. It's really good because it has this thin needle applicator, so you can control how much glue you put on. That just fits on like that. Bit of glue on there, and the other piece goes on. Make sure you have the front lined up properly and that it's sitting on those nubs inside. And of course, as you're building these, you can always put them down on a flat surface and make sure that everything's lined up correctly and sitting flat. Next we take these pieces, these side pieces, and these just tuck in like that. So you just sort of plonk it in there and glue it in that position. Same on the other side. While that's drying, we'll just do the stern piece, and we get these 2 tiny little guns here, and you can see they've got 2 little nubs there and a bit of glue on there that joins up with the bits where they fit there, and these squeeze together like so, and then that little bit of glue here, and that goes into the deck like that. Make sure that's all lined up. There's a rear piece and that fits on there. Like that. And these side pieces go on, and make sure they're in the right orientation, so this nub goes towards the back, so it'll fit in there. Just got a bit of glue left over from when I put them in the wrong way. Now back to this piece here, we've got this sort of sub deck, and this goes over those nubs in the same way it did at the front and sits like that. Bit of glue there. Finally put some glue on there on the back, and this back piece fits in like so. Nice and snug. There's our main deck. Now we just have to do the top deck. First up, there's this front gun platform. So a bit of glue on here. And it goes in very snugly there. Then I've got the top platform. These two pieces go together. That piece goes on top. As always, I'm doing this a little bit faster than I normally would, just because I'm filming. There's a piece on top of the smokestacks, which is a very nice little detail on the top of the stacks. And then finally there's this piece that goes at the back. Which fits flush like so. We take this, put some glue around the edge. And this fits in very neatly. Like that. All we need to do is add a couple of heavy rocket batteries. And again, I'll be magnetizing these later. And that is the Lexington. God, it's hard to say that word. Lexington. It's quite a tongue twister. That's the Lexington class heavy cruiser. Lexington. Wow, Lexington. I seem to have a bit of difficulty saying that word. Lexington. I'm trying to say Lek instead of Lex. Lexington. Okay. Fascinating watching me trying to pronounce words, isn't it? But look at that. What a stunning heavy cruiser that is. Beautiful level of detail. It's got the paddle wheels. Whoops, I forgot. You've got to put paddle wheels on as well. Don't forget the two paddle wheels. They glue onto the outside. You can see. There they are. And yeah, beautiful ship. Really love that one. Really detailed and really solid looking and threatening, isn't it? And of course there are the different configurations with this one. It just has a shorter stern, so you don't have this extra piece on the end. And it has a different bow here, so you only have one heavy battery in place. That gives you your other main configuration, but I prefer this one. Next up we've got the Farragut class frigate. There are 4 of them and they're easy to build. So we have first the main structure, which are these 2 tiny pieces. These glue together. Really like these guns here, which sort of look a little bit like old Wild West gun barrels, don't they? Just fitting for an American fleet. So we have that. Then there's a tiny front piece, this bit here, and that slots in. There we go. There's some smokestacks, of course. These tiny bits here. They pop in the top. Then there's the decking, this piece here, and that goes over the top. So it's a bit tricky. Just put a bit of glue on the inside and then thread this through like that. And then there it is, it sits in place beautifully like that. We've got a stern piece. These models are beautifully made because there are little guides that make everything fit into place really beautifully. And then finally we've got 2 stern pieces with paddle wheels attached. And on the other side, just make sure you hold the bow together so that glues in place. And that's the Farragut, very nice little ship. 4 of those frigates. And finally you've got the Akron observation rotor, and this requires no construction at all. You just cut it straight from the sprue. You just have to glue that flying stand into the base, and Bob's your uncle. Really nice little flyer. Next up there's the Tempelhof Battlefleet set, and this is of course the German themed faction. So in this one we have a large carrier, which is the Tempelhof class fleet carrier, that one. And there's also what we've got here are cruisers, which can be built in various configurations. And as you can see, they're sort of carriers as well. They launch off SRS tokens, which are your aerial support. But there are different options for building those ones. So in this one, because it's got carriers, you'll have lots of these SRS tokens. And you saw in my last video that SRS tokens, you have the actual miniature of the planes on the top, and then depending how many tokens you have stacked up, you stack these tokens next to the ships that the planes are defending or attacking. So we've got lots of those. Here's our carrier. As you can see, that's a really lovely big ship. It's got the iron cross there on the deck, though it's quite raised. I mean, if you fly over that, you sort of go, beep, oh. It's one of those things. And the tricky thing with this is that depending on how you set up the configuration of this, you can either have this plane sitting on that spot there, or you can flip it over and there's a different type of plane. So I'll be keeping that unglued so I can change it depending how I want to set up the carrier. So lovely big piece of resin as usual. And then it looks like we have two large sprues. They're the same design. They're our SRS tokens and enough pieces to make the rest of the ship. So let's see how this goes together. So first off, we've got the Tempelhof class fleet carrier. This is super easy. We just need a little bit of super glue to attach to the command center here. And put that in place. Press that down until it dries. Once that's down, you've got this great little detail. I love this. You've either got a fighter or a bomber on this little piece, and you can plop it in there whichever way you like, which I just think is absolutely lovely. You can either have the bomber or turn it over, and there's the fighter on the launch pad. Lovely little detail. Put a couple of flak guns on. Probably glue these ones in place. There's no point in magnetizing these tiny little guns. Put those on there, and we've got a little communications array on the top, and I think there's another gun here. Probably another flak gun goes on there as well. So put your little guns on, but yes, really impressive carrier there for the Imperium. Lovely detail as ever. I just love these resin ships. They're fantastic. They look great on the tabletop when they're painted up. I'm a bit behind on my painting, of course. I'm going to start painting all these up. Next up is the cruiser, and this can be built as a Conrad, Reiter or Volsung class ship. They all share the same base, however. So you have this prow piece. Make sure this bit is up the top. I got this wrong the first time, and then this, and it's still got a bit of glue on it because I got it wrong. This slides in there. You can see on the bottom how it lines up. Sits in there. Then we've got two little batteries of guns, and these fit to these two pieces, which are the sides, and guns facing out are going to attach, and they have two little knobs there to attach them. So we'll glue these on. Like that. Do the same on the other side. And you can see the bit with the gap in it goes towards the back, and this should fit in, there we go, just beautifully like so. So make a note of where the glue goes. It's just along this line. That little nub goes underneath and just slides in there, and then that fits like that. So put that flat, make sure it's fitting nice and snugly. Do the same on this side. You can see the deck plate lines up there. Then you've got these double pieces, this one and another one. These each go together. Gee, sometimes it feels like you've got really fat fingers when you're doing this kind of thing. Okay, they're such detailed little pieces. These fit on either side of the deck just perfectly to that. Again, there's always little guidelines and everything to make them fit neatly. It just sits in position beautifully. Another one over the other side. Our two very stylish smokestacks. And finally there's this piece at the back. This fits rather neatly in there. Again, take your time. As I said, I'm rushing a little bit for the camera, but just take your time, make sure everything's glued together perfectly. So that's your base piece. That's the same for all of the cruiser configurations. So now I've got some choices to make. Firstly, in all configurations, these two pieces go together. So let's glue those together. And they will always have this bit on the top. For this flying platform, let's attach the back piece, this bit here. So this is where things get quite tricky because you have three different options for the cruiser. There's the Volsung, which has this Sturmbringer gun up the front that can sit there. Or you've got the Reiter class, which takes out the Sturmbringer and puts in a platform with three flak batteries sitting on there on the front. So there's that option. And then finally there's the Conrad class, and this is quite different. This piece goes up the front here and you have this whole launch platform going on here. And it even goes to the trouble of putting this little platform underneath here with little planes on it. Here we go. There's two little planes sit on there, but which all get covered up by this anyway. So, you know, a lot of detail goes on there. So three different options, and you can't build them all, of course. I suppose you could muck around with magnets, but it would be very fiddly indeed. So I've got to have a think about how I build these. Well, in the end, after much deliberation, I decided to go with the Conrad class cruisers with these ones. I haven't put these together yet because I'm going to paint them in sub-assemblies. I'll attach this one, and then paint that whole piece, and then this is the separate piece which goes on the top like that. Now, of course, why bother painting all this wonderful detail when it's completely hidden? It's a bit strange, but I'll paint it very roughly, of course, because it's being hidden by this ramp. So the reason I went with this one is A, because it's a bit more interesting. It's a carrier kind of figure. This is the second one. It's a little bit more interesting, but also for some strange reason you don't get all the pieces you need to make two of the other types. If you wanted to have the Reiter class cruiser, which is the flak one, of course, I mentioned, you don't have quite enough of these. You're missing one because you need two banks of three, and you're missing one because you're using the other three on this carrier. If you wanted to create the Volsung class cruiser, you've got, this is the main gun of the Volsung class cruiser, but on top of this bit you have this little communication piece, and you only get two of these, and there's one on here, and then you've got one on the carrier as well. So really they somehow should have put on the sprue one more of the communication thing and one more of the flak gun to give you the full options. So strange omission there. I don't know why. Perhaps you should do one of each or something. I don't know. I'll probably find out more when I play the game more and find out what I need. Of course, by that stage I'll have already built them, so it'll be too late. But there's some interesting choices there, and actually a little bit more guidance about these choices would be great. I don't know how. Perhaps a little bit of a blurb on the back of the box or something like that would be good, because for a casual player like me it's a little bit confusing and a little bit difficult to decide which ones you want to build, which variants you want to build. Of course, there are some good forums on Facebook for this game where you can go and find out and get advice on what builds to have. So I assume if you're putting more effort into deciding which factions you want to build and your different options, these are all many choices that you can make, and it depends how deeply you want to get into army building for your Dystopian Wars games. In the meantime, let's move on to the destroyers, which come in two configurations. These differ only in their weaponry, so we just have to attach these two little side pieces like so. and then this piece sits over the top like that, which is quite neat. So a bit of glue on there and there, pops on like that. So that's the basic shape for both of these configurations. And then you can choose from two types of weapons, which are the Volt Gun Battery or the Sturmklau, depending on whether you want to go with the Toten or Sigimir Destroyer configuration. Well, there we have it. More gorgeous stuff for Dystopian Wars. The Tempelhof Battlefleet set and the Constitution Battlefleet set for the Imperium and the Union, respectively. And as you can see, when they're put together, just some gorgeous models. Really lovely stuff. Love those flyers there as well. And I think especially the Union ships I really like. There's so much detail on them. Really big, complex, paddle-driven ships. Really, really nice. The Imperium have a bit more of a streamlined, high-tech kind of feel, and definitely the emphasis on the carriers there. Though, of course, you have the other options as well. But the level of quality that's coming out of War Cradle for these ships is really something. Hope you've enjoyed this. There's more to come. There's some fantastic stuff coming. There's a terrain set, and there's also the Ice Maiden, which is a huge ship for the Imperial fleet. Really looking forward to checking that one out. And of course, you'll see it here on the Esoteric Order of Gamers, orderofgamers.com. Go and check it out. I've got a rules summary on the website for Dystopian Wars, so go and download it. It'll make your games of Dystopian Wars even easier to play. Until next time, thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.